Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we have awesome Nintendo Switch 2 news that has left doubters in shambles. There was so much to discuss today, variety of topics here. We have interesting updates regarding Pokémon Legends ZA, Xenoblade Chronicles, perhaps an important date for Metroid Prime 4, another date that some people are speculating to be potentially a Nintendo Direct date. I don't think so, but we'll clear that up. News on the Nintendo movie side of things, huge sales number updates, and some interesting impressions of a particular Switch 2 game that are certainly silencing many doubters on the abilities of Nintendo Switch 2. So we have much to get into this time. Let me tell you about these different thumb grips from KontrolFreek, the sponsor for today's video. Focusing first on these no-slip handheld edition grips, they fit on a variety of handheld devices like Steam Deck, ROG Ally, and I even found that they fit on the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. But these Splash Edition thumbsticks that come in a variety of different colors, I found to be a really nice advancement for the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. You see, the thing about the Switch 1 Joy-Cons, well, one, the original thumbsticks tend to wear down, but also two, they're kinda small. With these additional attachments, they have a little bit more reach, which make them a lot more comfortable to use for a variety of other games. You can find these all linked in the description below. So clearing things up first, people were starting to freak out because Charles Martinet on Instagram had announced that he was very happy to be invited to the Tokyo #Nintendo Direct this October 4th and 5th. Hope to see you there. #woohoo Nintendo Live. Now here's the thing. Initially, this hashtag was #Nintendo Direct. It's since been edited. And so some people thought that this was a mistake, that somehow he leaked the date for a Nintendo Direct, but here's some things to consider. One, a Nintendo Direct isn't going to span multiple dates. This is an official Nintendo Live event at Tokyo. This was just him accidentally picking the wrong hashtag. That's all this is. Charles Martinet did not accidentally leak a Nintendo Direct for October 4th and 5th. This is all about him participating in the Nintendo Live event in Tokyo on October 4th and 5th. That's all this is. Now, we've recently heard, it's been reported by several venues and rumored around, that there is a Nintendo Direct happening on September 12th. If you account for time zones, would be also on September 13th, and say for places like Japan, potentially depending on what time of the day the Direct happens, which would be Mario's 40th anniversary. So, while this post right here may not actually have to do with the Nintendo Direct itself, it's possible Mario 40th anniversary plans may be in the works, whether they happen on this rumored reported Direct on September 12th or not. Charles Martinet may be more active shortly after September, where there would be anniversary plans, because there's gonna be a Mario marketing campaign that has to do with the anniversary, and Charles Martinet would make sense to take some part in that. So this could mean more than what's being led on, but definitely not having to do with the Nintendo Direct itself in the beginning of October. Now, keeping in line with more date speculation, there's been a recent listing from this Russian site, videoigr.net, for Metroid Prime 4's release date, because they say at the bottom of the page here, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond 2 Edition 2 for Nintendo Switch will be available on Thursday, September 18th, 2025 at 12 p.m. This is a translation, hence the oddity in the choice of numbers and letters and words there. But the idea is that this game would be coming out on September 18th, a Thursday. So the one thing that checks out is that it is a Thursday, where Nintendo does release their games as of late. But September 18th is, to be honest, way too soon from now. We are going to have a big push for Metroid Prime 4. Make no mistake about it, Nintendo is going to market this game heavily. I know they've been very quiet on it as of late, but they're going to be pushing this game. It's not coming out September 18th. This is almost certainly just a placeholder. However, there is a small possibility that this could be perhaps a hint towards when we might see a Metroid Prime 4 Nintendo Direct. That is rumored, and if you consider that Nintendo's done a game-specific Direct for Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Kirby Air Riders, it would be strange to leave Metroid Prime 4 Beyond out of it, especially when you also consider that even with Pokemon, it's had some Pokemon Presents where it's been the star of those particular shows. where does Metroid Prime 4 get to be the total star of the show? I think it should get a direct. It makes a lot of sense. I would place money on it actually happening. And so when would it happen? Well, recently we have been theorizing that Metroid Prime 4 is likely to come out, if not in the last week of October, the first week of November. I have a whole video talking about that. You can check it out. It'll be in the iCard and the end screen. But if Prime 4 is coming out around this window of time, then it would make sense to have a Metroid Direct about a month or so beforehand. September 18th would make a lot of sense. And if we also consider the recently reported, not confirmed to be true, right? It is a rumor, but of this other Direct happening in the week prior, following on September 12th. And then there's also some whispers out there that perhaps Mario Anniversary stuff would start at the very beginning of the month. So Mario Anniversary stuff, big Direct, then a Metroid Prime 4 Direct in 3 back-to-back weeks. It's a nice idea. Maybe it could happen, but I also think they could do a Metroid Prime 4 Direct closer to release timing for Prime 4, assuming I'm right on that window of time. Maybe Prime 4 comes out even later into the year, like December, for example. Odds are, though, this is just a placeholder and doesn't mean that much. Even if this date does end up meaning something, there's a great chance it would just be a coincidence. And if somehow I'm wrong and Prime 4 comes out on September 18th, awesome. I'd be looking forward to that, but I really doubt it. Now, what some of you may consider more interesting news, because we haven't gotten any interesting updates on Xenoblade as of late, Monolith Soft posted this video, and if you check out this video here, it's just a scene from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Doesn't seem to be that spectacular, right? I mean, it looks like a fine scene, but what you may not realize is that people have done a little bit of a comparison of these scenes. Here is a screenshot from the video we just looked at, and here it is from the original release. It appears like there are some differences here. Lighting-wise, you can see a lot more off into the distance. Now, maybe this is just some sort of like HDR setting change or something like that, but it's possible that that would be the case because, well, there's going to be some sort of update for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, we've theorized for some time that there's going to be an update for at least Xenoblade Chronicles X, because we've seen within data mines that there are at least some considerations for a 60 FPS mode, and maybe that's being saved for Switch 2 at some point. Perhaps they are going to announce a series of updates for the different Xenoblade games on Switch 2, and this might just be a little bit more evidence of that, and perhaps Monolith Soft teased it on purpose or accidentally leaked some better footage of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Hard to say for sure. Regardless, the footage is different, so it's interesting. I will add that a few weeks ago I was theorizing that we might be getting a lot more Nintendo Switch 2 editions, like the next wave of them, and I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3 could conceivably get Switch 2 editions very similar to the Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where they're not as big and expensive, but they are nice visual improvements, and also performance improvements. Being pushed to 60 FPS would make for a big difference. Again, we'll see what happens. Now, in some definite official news here, we have a new announcement regarding Pokémon Legends ZA. Another Mega Evolution has been shown off. It's Mega Hawlucha. And as you see here, Hawlucha wears a golden mask as a luchador, which is cool. I like what they're kind of going for here. I will point out from the little cinematic they put together to initially advertise this, you can clearly see the gold texture and all, but in the actual game, it's just kind of like a bright yellow. So I'm a little disappointed on that, but that has more so to do with just the overall visual design and graphics of Legends ZA. And it actually has me thinking about when they showed off Mega Victory Bell, where they put together an even better looking little cinematic that clearly looked like some horror games of today. Not even necessarily a super complex one, but still a lot better looking than anything Pokemon puts together in their actual games. And so I just think it's interesting that we're seeing these cinematics that are better visuals than the actual games here, but also these cinematics aren't like the most visually impressive things either. There are things on Switch 2 that are actual gameplay that are about, if not more, impressive. Anyway, I didn't mean to go on this tangent of just poo-pooing on Legends ZA. I'm actually fairly excited for Legends ZA. I think they've announced some pretty interesting gameplay updates to the game, and it looks like, leading up to release, they're going to be announcing one Mega Evolution per week, so there could be several more to announce before the game comes out on October 16th. Something I'll throw out there, though, is that we still don't know about the starter evolutions fully, the mega evolutions of them. And that would be more than one. I doubt they would only show off one per week, so I would say there's a few more mega evolutions to account for here. And maybe also there's going to be some surprises when the game actually comes out. Are they really going to reveal every single mega evolution or new form in the game before it actually releases? I would hope not. Now, we just got an official announcement from Nintendo about their film business. As it says here, Nintendo hereby announces that WarpStar Incorporated, which became a consolidated subsidiary as of April 1st, 2025, has changed its name to Nintendo Stars. The company has been restructured as a Nintendo subsidiary responsible for the ancillary use business tied to films that feature Nintendo intellectual property. So to explain what that means, WarpStar is now totally under the umbrella of Nintendo, and WarpStar's name is now going by the name of Nintendo Stars. They've changed, but before, WarpStar used to have to do with Kirby. They were responsible for Kirby things, like a Kirby anime, for example. Now they're going to be working directly for Nintendo overall, which will still include Kirby, but other franchises as well, like perhaps Zelda and Mario, as they point out here, these movies that are currently in the works and are announced. Nintendo Stars will be helping out with these ancillary business uses. So I would say this is kind of a big deal because it shows that Nintendo's continually expanding on their ideas and plans for how they're going to be treating and pushing their movies and other similar types of media moving forward. Like maybe there's gonna be some animes, for example. If WarpStar, now known as Nintendo Stars, has some history on a Kirby anime, maybe they could be thinking about a Kid Icarus anime, or maybe also a Zelda anime in conjunction with the live-action movie. Just because there's a live-action movie doesn't mean they can't do other things with the IP. So it's going to be something interesting to keep in mind moving forward here. Now we have some interesting speculation that has come up here from Doctra81, who made a very interesting discovery. So he discovered that Pingle Studio, a studio responsible for porting over games to different platforms including Nintendo Switch and officially on their website also Nintendo Switch 2, he noticed that they were making reference to a VR headset for Switch 2, as you see here on this site. What might this have to do with? Could this be something that was actually planned? Was it pulled last minute? Or is it just some sort of weird error on the part of Pingle Studio on their website here? It's not even just a VR spectator mode with the Switch 2 headset. It's also cross-platform play with Mario Kart Tour. Last I checked, that's not a thing. So maybe this is just all totally off and it's just a weird post. But maybe also they accidentally leaked future Mario Kart World plans. So we've already seen that Nintendo has started to update Mario Kart World, which really should come as no surprise. This is a big game. It's a follow-up to Mario Kart Deluxe, one of their best-selling games ever, that sold consistently throughout the Switch era. Mario Kart is one of Nintendo's most evergreen titles. And so with Mario Kart World being that premier launch title for Switch 2, I would imagine the plan is to continually update Mario Kart World throughout the entire Switch 2 generation, keep it relevant, keep the momentum going. And so they probably have some other plans in mind for the future, like maybe this VR spectator mode and cross-platform play with Mario Kart Tour. Although, me really thinking about having cross-platform play with Mario Kart Tour, like, they are completely different games, so I don't know how that would even work. Maybe this was just a plan that was considered way back when and was canned a long time ago, and Pingle Studio simply has just made an error here. But it's certainly interesting to think about, and this could be some insight to future Mario Kart plans and also VR plans on Switch 2, which, as Doctra81 has indicated, could be a very big deal. But if you want Doctra81's full explanation on what may be going on here and how he discovered all this, check out his video. It will be linked in the description below. But now on to news that has left Switch 2 doubters in shambles. So Matt Piscatella of Circana on Blue Sky reported some very interesting findings. Hardware. Nintendo Switch 2 has now surpassed 2 million units sold in the US life to date. The system came out June 5th. It is currently 75% ahead of the unit sales pace set by the original Nintendo Switch. So a couple months in, and Switch 2 is pacing ahead of Switch 1 by 75%. I would say that's actually a pretty darn big deal, but let's read on here. Nintendo Switch 2 drove July's hardware spending growth. July dollar sales of PS5 hardware fell 47% compared to a year ago, while Xbox Series spending dropped by 69%. Nintendo Switch spending declined 52% year on year, Switch 1, just so we're clear here. But also it said, Nintendo Switch 2 was the best-selling video game hardware in units and dollars for both July and 2025 year to date. PlayStation 5 ranked second across both measures and time periods. So this is interesting. So not only was Switch 2 the best-selling console of July, which, you know, that you would assume that, right? Because the console just came out, that should be the hot item right now. But it's also already the best-selling console of the year in the United States, just overall, even though it's only been out for a few short months. So this speaks very well for Switch 2, and now that we're already a couple months removed, and it's still selling to this degree, it's still very early. This does not guarantee Switch 2 is going to outpace Switch 1 lifetime and become like a 200 million plus selling system, although that would be amazing. But it is absolute good news, and it goes to show the doomers out there, or the people that are trying to use anecdotal evidence to prove that the Switch 2 is going to be a flop. Well, that's not the case. Like, there are people out there that are going to go to a store, one random store of the many, that somehow has some Switch 2 units, and they'll show that picture on social media and say, see, Switch 2 is not selling, it's a commercial flop, yet the numbers show the complete opposite. Switch 2 is the best-selling system of the year already, having only been out for a few short months, and is pacing ahead of Switch 1, which has a fantastic chance to become the best-selling console of all time. It's one thing to say that when the console first came out in the first month, because pretty much all consoles sell out immediately because they can't meet demand, and Nintendo has simply put together fantastic numbers because they did their very best to meet demand. But now a little bit further out, it's still selling so strongly, bodes well. Again, it doesn't guarantee the Switch 2 is going to become the best-selling console of all time or even close, but things are pacing in a fantastic direction, and yeah, it is making a lot of the doubters out there, or the people saying Switch 2 is a flop, to look not so good right now, because that's not the case really at all. It's quite the opposite. And yet, doubters might be left in even greater shambles, because we're hearing some exciting things from Digital Foundry, who, by the way, has said some things that have been inconsistent about Switch 2 over the last few months, some things that are inaccurate, some things that are accurate, and so they certainly said some things that started a lot of conversation, but Digital Foundry is known for their expertise in analyzing graphics and performance, and they had a podcast recently where something very interesting was said regarding Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on Switch 2.
I'm going to say right now, this is the best looking thing I've seen on Switch 2. Seeing that game running at a stable 30 frames per second with that excellent motion blur especially, it looked fantastic. It was completely stable. It looked on par. Actually, I would say it looked better than the PS4 version at a glance. I feel like it's if I had to guess, and I haven't been able to compare because we don't have footage, it's going to fall somewhere between the PS4 and PS5 versions. So we'll see if that holds true for the final game, but that's the sensation I got while playing it. The image quality was absolutely superb. Like, it really looked great. It matched the 1080p screen. I was really, really happy about that, right? So that's a good one.
So it's super interesting to hear the impressions from Digital Foundry of what they have played of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on Switch 2. Like, they're saying some very positive things about this game, that it looks that good. And from what I've seen of the game so far, I remember playing it initially on PlayStation 4, and without doing side-by-side comparisons of direct feed footage, which we don't have yet, like, yeah, the game seems to look really good. And reminder, some people are saying, oh, it's just a PS4 game, it's not a big deal. Well, actually, 7 Remake Intergrade is not a PS4 game, it's a PlayStation 5 game, right? Like, they improved the game's visuals for the next console. This is a better version that has improved details, better textures, and more things going on. And from what Digital Foundry's saying here, from their impressions, their early impressions, right? Because we don't have our hands on the game yet, we haven't done all these direct feed comparisons and analysis and such, but they're figuring it's somewhere between the PlayStation 4 version and the PlayStation 5 version, which, surprise, surprise, and it actually shouldn't be a surprise, that's where the game probably should fall into, because the Switch 2 is somewhere between a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 5, which is actually extremely impressive because guess what? The Switch 2 is a handheld system, a hybrid console. It's not as big as a PlayStation 5, it's portable. So obviously, you shouldn't be expecting the game to look and run as good as a PS5 made game, but it doing better than a PlayStation 4, being somewhere in the middle, that says a lot. And them saying this is the most impressive game on Switch 2 to date, that is very high praise, but I gotta say, from what we've seen of the game, that might be the case. It looks really, really good. Now, something that has been said about this game that there's been some confusion on are some statements made by Nintendo Life where they had put together a sort of preview of the game from what they played from Gamescom. And initially, they said 60 frames per second, but then acknowledged they made a mistake and actually said that no, it's 30. And then they said, oh, actually, well, we heard from the reps that it's running at 40. And so in handheld mode, it's conceivable the game could run at 40 because the Switch 2 can run up to 120 frames per second, and it does have that VRR screen to support 40 FPS gaming in handheld mode. But Final Fantasy VII, the official Twitter page here, has said this. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade launches this winter on the Nintendo Switch 2, running at a stable 30 frames per second, offering smooth performance and crisp visuals. The visuals and performance do seem to be crisp and smooth, and I'm excited for this game, but there is nothing here about them touting 40 FPS gameplay. So maybe there's still somehow a surprise mode of the game running at 40 FPS, certainly possible, but with the official account not stating that right now, Nintendo Life might have been mistaken. Or the reps that told them that the game was running at 40 FPS in handheld mode might have been mistaken, and that's totally possible. It's also possible that it's just something that they're not advertising it and they're saving it as an announcement later on. It's possible, but for now I'm just going to assume the game is running at a smooth 30 FPS with crisp visuals, as a lot of people are noting right now. And so this is exciting stuff. Like, I got the game on PlayStation 4, but I never finished it. Hearing about this version, apparently looking better than the PS4 version, running well, and also being on a handheld, which I think is good for playing a lot of RPGs, because these are long games, right? Sometimes you want to play them in shorter stints while you're on the go and what have you. And yeah, I'm kind of thinking I might double dip here and actually play through and beat the game this time around. I mean, with a game like this, it's so impressive. It's something I feel like I gotta support, and I mean, it's Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Like, this is a hype, exciting game, so absolutely, it'd be something I would love to enjoy again and fully appreciate this time. So it's looking to be an exciting release, and it's something else that's certainly not giving a lot of Switch 2 doubters and haters much to counter with here. And one last thing, Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star-Crossed World has come out today. If you don't have the game, it's a full-on game essentially, but if you do have the game for Switch 1, it's just a $20 DLC basically on Switch 2, and it's actually reviewing quite well. An 85 on Metacritic of the 48 critical reviews that have come out already, so that's looking pretty good. But what do you all think? What do you make of all this latest news and these speculations? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.